A little known fact. Did you know that in England they do not call green peas English peas? Just like in France, they don't call French onion soup French onion soup. They call it soupe à l'oignon. And that's what we're doing today, a classic take on the French tradition of French onion soup, soupe à l'oignon. Hey guys, thanks for joining us. If this is your first time tuning in, let us know you're out there by giving us a big thumbs up below and then hit that subscribe button to make sure you never miss a video. Now, let's start cooking. So, taking a look at our ingredients, we are doing onion soup. Again, it's not actually called French onion soup in France. It's called soupe à l'oignon. So, our ingredients are, of course, onions. And in this case, I've used a Spanish onion. And probably the best onion to use for this is a Spanish onion or a Texas sweet or a mild white onion. I would stay away from the yellow onion, the large yellow onions, because they just aren't as sweet of a flavor. But it is important to use a good onion for this because, of course, that's going to be the main part of the soup. And then we are using a beef stock, and this is a homemade beef stock that I've made. If you don't want to make your own beef stock, you can purchase a beef stock, but just make sure that it's a low salt one and hopefully an organic one. And I know a lot of recipes for French onion soup call for beef bouillon, a beef bouillon cube in addition to the beef stock. I tend to stay away from that because bouillon cubes tend to have MSG in them, and they also have glutens in them, which we have to stay away from. So those are kind of our two main ingredients, and those will make our soup. And what we'll do is we'll start the soup by sweating our onions, that is cooking them until they're soft and translucent. And now this is important in that I have sliced these onions quite thinly. I've actually done this with a mandolin. You can use your knife if you'd like. You can use your attachment for your slicing attachment on your mixer or on your food processor, whatever you want. But you can see that these are quite thin slices. So that's how to prepare the onions for this soup. And now the other ingredients are, we've got a little bit of olive oil and we've got a little bit of butter, and that is what we're going to use to get our onions sauteed and to get them sweated actually. And when I say sweat, I mean to cook very slowly until they're soft and translucent. And now then we will be actually caramelizing these onions, and we'll talk about that later. But that's what the oil and the butter are for. And then we're going to put a little bit of flour in, and flour is going to serve as our thickener. And in this case, I've actually used the gluten-free flour. And you just need a very little bit. I'll probably use maybe 2 tablespoons of that. And then we will add some garlic, and I've got probably a tablespoon of garlic. I had 2 large cloves of garlic that I minced, and that's what we came out with, about 2 tablespoons of garlic. And then herbs for the soup are going to be, I got a couple of bay leaves and some thyme, just a sprig of thyme. We'll put that in there. We'll deglaze our pan with some white wine, a dry white wine. You could also use a red wine. I wouldn't use a heavy red wine. I would use something like a Pinot Noir or a Gamay, something like that. Not necessarily a Cabernet Sauvignon or a Zinfandel. But that will deglaze our pan, and then we'll, of course, add our stock to it. And then to finish our soup, we are using some baguette, a French baguette that we're going to slice, and we're going to grill that topped with this cheese, which is a fantastic French cheese. It's Comte. It's actually C-O-M-T-E. It's pronounced Comte in France. But a lot of recipes I know use Gruyere cheese, which you could also use, but I really wanted to stay French. Gruyere is actually a Swiss cheese. It's not a French cheese. So we're using a Comte from the Comte Franche region of France. So those are our ingredients. Let's get started. We are heating up our cocotte, And in this case, I've got a large cooktop because it's got a nice big surface area. And what we'll do is we're just going to cover the bottom of that with some olive oil. And then because of our quantity here, I'm probably going to put, I don't know, it's probably going to end up being about 2 tablespoons of butter in here because we have a lot of onions. One more. And that we're going to be cooking in here. So we'll get that going, and we can actually go ahead and toss our onions in. And we'll let those get cooking. And what we'll do is once we get all these in, we will just stir them around. And as you can see, it's a lot of onions, which is going to be fantastic. We'll get those stirred around. Let everybody get coated with olive oil and butter. And then we will put the top on this because we have a large quantity here. We're going to put the top on it, and we're actually just going to sweat these onions. So we'll go ahead and add a little bit of salt to that, which if you've been with me before, you know that I like to add a little salt when I'm sweating onions. It helps to draw out the moisture, and it also begins the process of seasoning. So we'll do that, and we'll keep our heat on about a medium low because we don't really want to caramelize anything just there. We don't want to get them too hot and burn them before all of the moisture is out of them. So we're going to do that, and we'll put the lid on and just let them sweat for probably a good 20 minutes. The one thing about this soup is that it's wonderful and it's easy, but you cannot rush the process. So lid on, 20 minutes. Our onions have been going now for about 20 minutes. So let's just take a look. And I did stir them once just to make sure that everything was cooking evenly. So now I'm taking the lid off, and look at that. They are all nice and soft. Very nice. And of course have reduced quite a bit. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to leave the lid off. And I'm going to let the moisture evaporate, and I'll probably add a little bit more butter to this because now what we want to do is start to caramelize these onions. And we want to start getting those little brown bits to form on the bottom of the pan, and that's where all your flavor is. So now we'll leave the lid off of that for a little bit, and I'll go ahead and crank the heat back up because again, most of the time when you're sweating onions, you're not looking for color. In this case, we do want these to caramelize a little bit. So that's what we'll do now. Look at these onions. Wow, can't you just taste that? Can't you just smell it? So they have now been going for about 15 minutes, and I've had the lid off, and I've got my heat on probably a medium high. And again, this is what we want. We want this caramelization to develop. And you see that color that we're getting? But we want to get it even deeper. So we're probably going to let these go. I may turn the heat up a little bit and let these go another 5 minutes or so until they're a little bit deeper brown. Our onions are nice and caramel. Look at that. Look at the nice color we've got there. And yeah, things were sticking to the bottom. So now I'm just going to go ahead and put the garlic in. And we will let that stir and cook for just a couple of minutes here. Is all we need. So now that we've got our garlic cooked, I'm just going to sprinkle this. And I know I've got a quantity in the recipe, but really we just need a nice dusting of our flour, just like that. And we're going to cook that for just a few minutes. And the flour just really serves the purpose of thickening up the soup. And so we'll stir this around for a minute and let that flour, the rawness of the flour, cook out. So we'll let our flour go for about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, something like that, to just make sure the raw flavor is out of it. So now we're tossing our wine. And again, we use about a half cup of wine here. And what I'm going to do is bring this wine to the boil, and we are deglazing our pan with this. So once it comes to the boil, we will eventually be able to scrape up any of the bits that are stuck on the bottom of the pan, and then we're going to reduce this wine really by about half. It's going to actually look like most of it's going to be gone once we get ready to move to the next step. Hey everybody, it's Walter from Artistic Gourmet Adventures. My wife Kim and I own this unique small group tour company where we host groups of 6 to 12 guests for 1-week luxury adventures in beautiful locations throughout Europe and the United States. I have the privilege of being the adventure chef, creating and preparing daily gourmet meals for our guests. So, in this video series, from our cozy home kitchen here in the beautiful Loire Valley of France, we will demonstrate a wide variety of recipes, from culinary classics to originals, as well as covering professional kitchen techniques for the home chef. For more information on Artistic Gourmet Adventures, check our website, linked in the description below. All right, our wine is reduced now, and you do want to go ahead and make sure that you let that wine reduce, and then cook it for about another minute or so, just to cook the alcohol out. We don't actually want the alcohol flavor in the soup. It's just an enhancer. It's just a fortifying agent of the soup, if you would. Okay. So once that wine has done its job, now it is time to put our stock in. And this is my favorite point in this soup. All right, let's get a little bit more. And because we have quite a few onions, I'm probably going to add just a little bit more. I'm going to grab a little bit more stock and add to this. But that is going to be fantastic. And what we will do now is bring this to the boil. We toss in our aromatics, our bay leaf, our thyme, and we're going to bring this to the boil, and then we'll turn it down and let it simmer for about 30 minutes. Our soup should be ready to go, so let's give it a check. And beautiful texture, nice. All right, so tell you what we'll do is we'll fish out the herbs that we put in here, the bay leaf, and our thyme. All right, and now we've got the grill on, the broiler on, and what we're going to do is, and you could do either of two ways. You could take your soup bowl and put the soup bowls on a sheet, then put your bread inside with the cheese on top, and then put it under the grill. Or what I'm going to do is actually just put the bread under the grill itself. And so we'll grill these two pieces, and we'll use that for our topping. Well, we want to give this a taste before my bread sinks. So let's give it a shot. And I'm telling you what, this Comte cheese on top of this with just this bread, you could just have that as your meal. Oh, it is really, really delicious. Great flavor. Nice gooey cheesy. Oh, caramelized onions, butter. I don't know, what else could you say besides delicious? If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, give us a thumbs up below and hit that subscribe button, it's free. And ring the bell if you want to be notified as soon as we release a new video. Also, let us know in the comments if you have any special recipe requests. We really appreciate you tuning in. See you next time.